And we're live. There's my what Leon. You know, you can tell what Leon's doing. You have sensors. There's the book. There's the link on the wall. Wilma Rena on Lulu,
Okay.
and we're going to. In fact, Leon, while I put, you can play some stuff while I go and get these screen
Okay.
grabs and slides on. Yeah, he doesn't do requests, folks.
Bradley might be, you know
Right, so
Bradley?
we're not doing Model V yet. We're going to go to the beginning, and we're going to be talking about the role function.
Yay!
Right then. Role function. So, externality. It's externality. Leon, are you tinkling away? Breaking my concentration.
Okay, yeah. Continue.
ADHD tendencies. So the idea is that we're all introverts. We're all reserved, and the idea is that we have greater scope of use for all of our introverted functions because it's part of our general introverted attitude. So, and for this one, this is minimum energy. This is like just enough to get basic stuff done with the role function. I'll go on to the launcher later on. And can you please remind me that I should go back to this graphic to explain what the launcher function is once I've gone through.
To go back to this page?
Yeah,
Okay.
to go back to this one, the first slide after I've done the role, because what I should have done is I should have duplicated this and then put it again.
Okay.
In fact, what I could do is I could do that now. If I zoom this in, you could read that through in the role box and let us know what you think it means whilst I duplicate the graphic.
Okay. You want me to read this, the role?
Yeah,
right
you
now?
read it out loud because you're an advanced typological person and you can tell us what you think.
Okay, so role number one, the function that is trained the way an athlete is trained by a coach or an actor is rehearsing his part, hence the usual name role function. Just like an athlete needs to keep training to maintain muscle mass, so a person needs to keep training this function or it will lose effectiveness. Such as your type, Ben, L.I.I, needs to keep monitoring their own behavior to stop going into bad habits such as interrupting. And so I'm so becoming more INFP, I guess. In a dual relationship, the TiNx role Fi is trained by FiSi's control Fi. Okay, I have to think about the last thing about the being FiSi's Fi Fi training your Fi up.
Yeah, it chains it up in the dual. So the idea being that, say with ESFJ, that they would, for example, they have the control Fi, and so it's like they have a lot of information for Fi stuff, but they don't value it. So it's sort of like, well, if you do this and if you do that, I know it's a choice, I know it's not, I don't really, but it's like they give the information to the other person.
So they give you advice with it.
Yeah, and it would be, say, and ESFJ's role function is TE.
Yeah.
So maybe INTP would say to ESFJ, well, you could do this, you could do that. You know, because INTP has lots of ideas for TE stuff, but not the energy to do it. Well, if you tried this, you'd try that. And then that's the sort of ideas for the ESFJ that, as you said, Leon, and I do quote you on this, has the energy of 3 people, can maybe use and implement those ideas. So it's sort of helping each other out with the role function, with the function that you have a lot of information for and that you'll tell other people about, but you haven't got energy to implement yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to get this in the correct order.
How do you experience it, Ben?
How do I experience it?
Yeah.
You're talking about the role function?
Right.
Well, I will get to that in a moment. And what I'm going to do is, just to make sure that I don't get confused with this and I know where I am, on this second graphic, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the flipping thing in half so that I know it's focused on the launcher. And it's going to be there. It's going to be focused. And I'm actually going to do it with this one. So you can actually see it live on air that this graphic is going to get cut in half. And it's going to be there. Has it changed? Yes, it's changed. No, oh no, have I made a mistake? No, that should be up here. Then I'll be all right. That's launcher. This one, we're on the role function. And it's still part of the social adaptation block. And I'm actually regretting that I did that now. And so I'm going to go back to this and I'm going to undo that that thing. And I'm going to save it. And let's see what happens. And it should go back to that. What about the other one? Is the other one still cut in half? Probably, but that doesn't really matter. Right then. So this is pandemonium. We don't know what we're doing. Right, so role function. So my theory about this is that it's part of the same overall mindset. And so if you are an introverted judging type, and by that I mean I little j. So I big P in Kersey. And meaning that if you lead with a judging function and you're introverted, so you're leading with TI and FI, the overall attitude is you're subjective and you're rational. So that means you're always trying to rationalize things. And so you're going to have an overall preference to do it in a feeling point of view. But the way I see it working is that as soon as you think about it, you're using TI. You have the the ethical, you know, like the moral compass that takes you in a certain direction, that leads you in a certain direction. You have those feelings, and then you think about those feelings and rationalize them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And if you're INFP, you see how those feeling-based thinking fits in with your overall system, and because you've abstractified it with the NE. So you can see that you've gone from a feeling to a lot of thinking and a lot of NE, so it becomes very intellectualized from that. And INFJ also is an intellectual NF, but theirs is maybe more where the TI is a starter motor for the NI, because it's very sensitive to the TI. And then they'll have sort of things pop up into their minds. Now, and then maybe we do that as well. The INPs do that as well, but they don't trust it as much because they try to rationalize it. Where did that come from? Where is this? Whereas the INFJs and INTJs say, I just know. That's their point. So it's their inner perception coming from within. I just know, I've seen it. I have that feeling. So hey, look at Viktors, like just judging extroverted sensing, like just put a cast on there. See, that's the downside of your extroverted sensing. You're going to get your arm in plaster. So for the kinesthetic. So I thought that was quite amusing. So we've got the I little J's here. I don't know how true this is about if there's a focus on auditory. I just know from Dario's research that INTPs are some of the worst listeners, but INFP is the best listener. And ISFP is a very good listener, and as long as they're curious, then they are. A stable state. So Leon, you've had experience with INFPs and yourself and INFJs. Do you think that you are less moody than them?
INFJs and INTJs?
No, I got an idea. I need to phrase this better. Do you think that absent external factors, that your mood is more even than, say, the mood of an INFJ? Because it appears to me that INFJs get moody even when there's no external factor causing the change of mood.
That's hard for me to say. Absent external factors, I mean, I think we may appear less moody, but I don't know if that's actually true. Maybe they have extrovert feeling, right? So.
because I was thinking that's why I put the external factors in there, because there might be something that strikes a chord ethically with the INFP that gets them upset and changes their mood. I just wondered, absent that, are they going to be, because it's bringing in this socionics thing of static versus dynamic, where so for example you can get INFJs where they're sociable for about a week and it's like they just don't want to socialize anymore because they want to do the NI thing and sit and meditate and conserve their energy. Whereas I don't think it's as much like that with INFPs.
Okay.
What do you think? What have you noticed in your patterns of interaction with people? Do you think the INFJs tend to go quieter and then come back sort of all or nothing, and maybe the more even keel with the socializing with INFP? I just wondered if you'd noticed patterns with your interaction.
With an INFJ, I know like INFJ in terms of like in a classroom setting, they kind of sit rather quietly. Like they're pretty guarded and quiet. And then they seem closed off, but then they might... I feel like some of them can appear actually very, very stable. Because one thing about INFJs is that they actively control their emotions. So they kind of have like a Mona Lisa smile where they're not expressing that much outside. So INFJ, yes, could be hard to tell that they're. I guess they can get really like sometimes the SE and FE kind of just like juts out, and then they get kind of like they can get very hard on something. Like they get like something crosses their values, and then they get really they get when that happens.
Yeah, I sort of meant like whilst they're there, they're on when they're doing the FE thing, and it's just their mood in terms of they'll be sociable, and then the other moment they're not sociable because they just don't feel like it, and they've not got the energy, and they want to go into NI mode and meditate and do. They just don't feel like they're up to socializing. But once they actually are socializing, then they are pretty stable, probably because of the FE thing, you know, wanting to fit in with other people and focus on other people. So
I'm trying to think about them like INFJ. Like maybe in public, it's more likely that if they are unstable, that they'll show that they're unstable.
Right.
If they're out, but in a public setting, INFP will seem whatever is going on in INFP is always going to try to look stable on the outside.
Another way I can put this is in terms of relations, where, and we'll get onto this in a moment, where INFPs try to have stable relations. So I just wondered, in your interactions with, say, people on Facebook, are the INFPs likely to be more consistent in response than, say, the INFJs, or they might be enthusiastic one moment, and then they seem to lose interest and energy the other. So it's like their interest wave, again, it's there. Does it sort of also, have you noticed that as a pattern where, oh, they seem disinterested one week and then interested the other? And I just wondered, in your interaction, did you notice those kind of patterns where INFP is consistent, INFJ, their interest wanes, ebbs and flows?
I have to really think about that one in terms of INFJ and INFP. I also have to kind of tease apart like maybe people I see as unstable versus people I think are stable.
I've just realized now it's probably just a relationship that INFJs have with INTP. It's just the nature of the benefit relationship that it ebbs and flows because they only have so much energy for TI. Is that like they get enough? Okay, that's enough. Now I'm going to go away. So, and also they probably get drained a bit by the NE. So I don't know if you, what do you think, Monica? Have you noticed any differences in sort of the level of interest with INFPs and INFJs?
Well, I would say that INFPs, according to in MBTI, I'm still a little bit confused about. You know, I'm more used to MBTI sort of seeing things and functions.
Yeah.
And I have a few INFP friends who are like very, very unfocused, and all the time they're interesting. Their interests are like in 100 things at one moment, and it's really hard to focus on finishing something, and then they are able to leave it for a few weeks and then again jump in with a lot of enthusiastic energy just to leave it again after 3 days. So and this is something what was happening to me sometimes too. Like I'm not very stable with my I mean, my interest can be stable, but I will return to it more, how to say that, and not to confuse you.
Right then.
Well, go on.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think I get that is another angle on it, that it's not just a case of interest, it's the NE taking over. I just noticed that INFJs will actually tell you when they're tired as well. I just noticed they have their moments because it's a lot of them actually, because NI is so associated with the unconscious. They literally do want a lot of the time to sit there and go into a semi-trance and contemplate things, and not necessarily on it depends, because when you're getting so much inside someone's head, just see these trends where it's almost they want to go off and meditate, they want to introvert, and it's sort of something. Leon has put something up. I thought you were showing something on your t-shirt there, Leon. What does it say? Pike Place Market?
Stretching.
Oh, I thought it was a paid endorsement.
Yeah, paid endorsement of Seattle. This mark in Seattle.
Right, you know about the Beeb model. So because what we're talking about here in the Beeb model, he calls this the demon function. So what I can ask you straight up is, this is off the internet somewhere. Is this actually reflective of his position on the demon function? Because I've heard Carol say that it's not that simple, and that there's another side to it where maybe there's room for growth with the demon function.
That there's room for growth for it? Yeah, according to Socionics, there is.
Yeah, I know, but I went off on a little bit of a rant with this.
He said, was it like, didn't he say it's transformational? Something like that?
Yeah, it's just that I think there is a difference between what he actually said and then what people think it says on the internet, because I think what people think on the internet, in the MBTI people that have an 8-function model, they think the demon function is the weakest function. Yeah.
Well, they just assumed that Dr. BB was ordering all the functions by their strength, which he wasn't.
Yeah.
They just took it for granted. Like, oh, that.
Yeah. So you can see here, they just think, so for INFP, so according to model BB, INFP's weakest function is TI. That is not the case. That is not the case. Because, I mean, subjective thinking, the INFPs are introverts and they're abstract. They are going to do TI. By definition. Because usually abstractions involve thinking.
Well, I think that's very interesting how you do it. It's like you do it by association of abstraction and introvert judging, and therefore introvert thinking is maybe that is the case. I thought about introvert thinking is more of like a function that does this. It does this logical subjective analysis. So I'm trying to piece it together. I'm trying to make sense of it in my brain. I mean, by association, it makes sense. I'm just wondering if it's...
Yeah, I get that. I get that from Kersey, because it's like he says, all intuitives are abstract in speech, and the assumption is because they're abstract in speech, they're abstract in thought. And so if you're abstract in thought, it's usually going to involve thinking.
Yeah. So, but for an ISFP, it would be different.
I think so, because they're not abstract.
Yeah.
They're not. Now they can think in a very sophisticated way, but it's tied towards practical uses. So, for instance, Imogen yesterday, she knows a heck of a lot about nutrition and things that she's learning in order to teach homeschool her children. It's not like with the abstract types, especially the IN types, where it's almost abstraction for its own sake. Especially with now, INTJs less so, because they're still filtering things through the test of usefulness. But with INTP, INFJ, and INFP, they really can become intellectuals for its own sake. It seems ENTP as well. But anyhow, so we'll quickly go through this. So I actually did this thing. Now, so this was based on. This was a little bit critical to John Beebe because it was based on a false assumption that thing that was written earlier on, that it was the weakest function. So in this critique that I did in comparing the role function with the polar function, it sort of shows what it does. So what I'll do, folks, is read it out in case people are on a mobile device. Or would you like to read it out, Leon? It's up to you.
If I could read it, what do you want me to read?
Okay, from the top where it says, because then you can
why
stop
the
on
function?
It. Yeah, where it says my function, because then you can stop and comment on it and say what you think of it.
Why function in, you can hear me?
Yes,
why
I can hear you.
In break func position is the weak, but not the role.
Yeah.
INTP is TINE, lead function TI. Opposite vertness to TI, TE, FE, SE, NE. Opposite vertness to TI, and opposite JP, SC, NE. Okay. NE's auxiliary function at one left. That's doubly opposite of TI. Thus, SC is the weakest function in INTP. Okay, this is all written in like INTP language, where you like, where it's like you just I don't know. It's like
okay.
It's all like computer code or something.
Okay. The idea being that it's the opposite mindset because it's introverted judging, and so an extroverted perceiving function is the opposite of that. And then so it's like, and you're already using, say, NE as your auxiliary function. So it's like, why use the SE? So that's that bit. But then it's just a bit towards the bottom where, oh, here we go. INTP preference people see SE as anathema to their lead process. I scored 1 out of 16 on Dario's SE inventory and see no reason to improve that score. And then the ISTP resemblers have SE in the auxiliary slot of the model of them. They use lead TI in a different way from INTP resemblers. They'll quickly analyze the situation, then act and be in the moment. Less likely to use a theory to gain leverage, but can still use intellectual tools to get the job done. Usually to achieve a more short-term expedient goal than an INTP's more remote goal. In INTP resemblers, the preference for auxiliary NE is sidelining SE and thus leading it undeveloped. Because with SE, you are being in the present moment, but with NE, you're thinking across contexts. So those two things run opposite to each other. And then we've got something here with the NFP. This idea that okay, and I put here, if this logic is not accepted by the Beebers, they can go against the superordination of the two main Jungian dichotomies. And then that's INTP stuff. Okay, this is what I should have gone to. This is the only thing I should have talked about this down here. This observation tells us that INTP is better at FI than SE, compared to ENTP, more loyal, less good under pressure, less confident, can be judgmental, especially about ENTP and ESTP resemblers.
Okay, and that's your experience, Ben?
Yeah, that's what because otherwise, because if you think about it, with ENTPs, they would be they're break F, they wouldn't, but you can see that they're stronger at FI because theoretically, in Beeb, INTPs are weaker at FI than ENTP. Not Beeb's own understanding, but what people think in MBTI, because they think, oh, FI is the last function. Therefore, INTP should be less loyal than ENTP. But if you look at them, ENTP, and we know ENTP and ESTP are weaker at FI than INTP. So that proves that conception of the role function being the weakest in that MBTI model is rubbish. And then another one here. And also, ENTP is better at SE than FI. ENTPs can be quite good at SE. But theoretically, according to Model Beeb, SE is their weakest function. Well, not so much Model B, but you know, I mean, the people who follow it, who misunderstand his model and don't realize that final function is about growth, they think that ENTP is weakest at SE. But if you see that, you observe them, you know that ENTPs can stand up for themselves a lot better than INTPs. Is that fair to say, Leon?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And then we got here, ESTP is better at NE than FI and sees little value in FI. And Morgan says, this is Jeff's son, INFPs run away from me. INFP is SE break. And then here, right, this is what Kersey wrote about ESTP. And their mates may in time come to feel like possessions or negotiable commodities. So Kersey was seeing very weak FI in ESTP. And he saw them as the con artist. So, you know, ethically challenged.
Yes.
Here we go. INTJ is better. So theoretically, INTJ should suck at SI because they're inferior SE and therefore demon SI. ESTP, INTJ is better at SI than FE and sees little value in FE beyond its good for business reputation. So we can agree that INTJ is, everyone can agree who knows what an INTJ is and knows what functions are, that they're weaker at FE than SI. Again, Beeb model wrong, or not his actual model, but what people think of it in the MBTI when they do their 8-function model. ESFP is better at NE than TI. I think that's fair enough. I mean, they can come up with ideas and adapt in the moment and be creative. And then, right, conclusion via TI and TE. School of Humanitarian Socionics Model G is better than Beeb model. But that's a very TI explanation. But I'll go to observations there. Anyway, so that's not actually what John Beeb thinks. Because if you go to Leon's channel, folks, you will get an interview with the man himself, with Leon. And what John Beebe actually says, I believe, is that the demon function is opportunity for growth and development. Is that correct, Leon?
Yeah, he does.
Right, and that's what it is in Model G as well, where the role function, that you can train it up, that it can improve with a lot of hard work. It's almost like you don't like it, but you see the value of improving it. So, that's you, Leon. So what is your view? How do you view TI?
How do I view TI?
Yeah, and what in terms of what you think about it, its usefulness to you.
Well, definitely defining ideas. So I see it as a, for the most part, like a tool. So when you see something as a tool, maybe that kind of takes away the intrinsic value of it in a way. I do sometimes like it for its own sake. If I really get into my TI, then I could really enjoy it and think about all these logical processes or philosophizing about things for its own sake. So I think there is actually a recreational enjoyment of the role function. I think in terms of value, I think maybe INFPs in general, they fundamentally, at a fundamental level, don't think things are describable in terms of logical categories.
Right. Yeah. So, Monica, what do you think? You've read various definitions of TI. and across various systems. What do you think of it? How do you relate to TI?
Well, TI, as is described in MBTI, I think it's something would really help me to understand people and to understand the world with connection, with the help of extroverted intuition with NE, because then it's possible for me to think about all of these various angles of situation or of a problem, and it really helps me to analyze everything, every possible outcome or every possible angle. So I think it was the most important function for me, because it helped me to interact a lot. Because I would really say that, you know, if I'm reading this about a role function, and it's what I've been saying the whole time, that all of my people skills were actually learned and trained. And I think I was able to do that because of TI, because I could observe it, analyze it, trying to understand it, the logic of, for example, of people action, of people behavior. And I would say that it resulted in me looking as skilled in terms of people relationship and people human world.
I think that I think the way Socionics defines FI at first glance with its name makes it misleading, because they call it ethics of relations, whereas that is not the core of the process. The core of the process is FI. It's just that it does ethics of relations via FI, because it's by, and we talked about this last week, about it's the subjective feeling of how they feel about the relationship, that how they judge what is appropriate based on their subjective feeling. It's not there in ESTPs and ENTPs, that feeling. They don't so much have that moral compass or gut check as to what is the right thing to do, and they go off more of the social convention for it. And if they're really well observant to social conventions, ENTPs and ESTPs can seem more socially skilled than INFPs if they're really observant to the manners of a society, because they just follow those with skills and are very observant. I mean, there were plenty of very socially skilled ESTPs, whereas INFP, you can have INFPs who are and INTPs who are very reserved, but if they don't have the connection with people, they just do not find people around them who are not like them. How do they do it when their whole interaction process is based on connection? If they don't have the connection there, it's like, if you had this, Leon, where you feel you have nothing in common with a person, and it's like, how do I then interact with this person? I have not got anything coming from within telling me what to do.
I definitely do feel that way.
Yeah.
Well, for me, sometimes, and it's probably more connected to NE, that sometimes it's like in a computer game, when I see a lot of possibilities or a lot of possible reactions, for example, and my task is to select a good one, the one which is appropriate for some results. So I'm just trying to see the logic and those consequences of what I get with each of those of each of those options which I have in my mind.
Right. This thing that's on screen at the moment, so we've got, again, so you've got there the TI plus of INFP and the FI minus of INTP.
So Ben, do you do like, it says may strongly disapprove of morals around it, but usually keeps his opinion to itself. Do you ever disapprove of my morals, Ben? But keep it to yourself?
I don't disapprove of your morals, but yeah, that is extremely true of me. And you'll actually notice how that actually sounds like very ESI. I have my ESI moments, probably, especially when I've not had enough sleep. Ah, yes.
So wait, so INTP actually becomes like ESI?
Well, this one does. But I'm very close on F versus T, so I can sympathize with Monica feeling in between.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, we could go through. So, what do you think, Monica? If we go through the, in fact, if we go through both of them with Monica and then both of them, do you think we should do TI plus with Monica, then TI plus with Leon, or both of them with Monica and then both of them with Leon? What's the best way? Which way would you prefer, Monica?
Oh, probably we can switch after each.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
So if you go on TI plus, Monica, and let me know what you think of each bullet point.
I will read it out loud again. Is reserved and is known by its good discipline. Well, if you asked my mother this question, she would tell you that there is no no sense for discipline at me. And unfortunately, I should probably agree with her. I'm not very good with discipline. It's something what is hardly forced for me. I mean, it can look like I'm good with it, and if I'm interested in this thing, it helps a lot. When there is some interest for me, I really can stay focused a lot, and it really seems I can make it done, and I can work on it regularly. But I'm more working in those bursts of energy. So I think it's sort of opposed. It's sort of a contradiction to having a good discipline.
I'll just say why it's in there, because TI plus, and he is based TI plus on LSI. The problem is that LSI might be ISTJ, and so it may be misput in the system. That's one of the deductive things that's a little bit of a quirk. So whenever you get to TI plus, it will seem very, very disciplined. It will sound like ISTJ and MBTI whenever you see TI plus, like a rigid structure. And just to do a little joke about it, look, this is what Victor thinks of TI plus. There he is. That's from a video. This is functional socionics, so his own school, unlike the original socionics with its rigid structural approach. So
you think that you think that's an FI moment?
Well, maybe from Victor. Those his feelings are coming out. INTPs like to think for themselves. They don't like rigid structures. And the same with all IN types like to think for themselves. And all SPs and NCs. Oh, yeah, SPs, yeah.
Okay, and next one.
Yep.
Oh no, back to the reserved part. I would say that I'm reserved inward. I won't say a lot of things about me if I really don't want to, but outwardly probably wouldn't think I'm reserved. But again, it's something I need to focus on, because if I don't constantly focus on how I am sympathetic, then probably I can look like someone who is firm and reserved and who is not very friendly. So it really depends if it's reserved outwardly or inwardly.
Right. It's an interesting thing about you, Monica, is that you identify heavily with Enneagram 4, but then so did I.
Can you repeat it?
I identified heavily as INTP 4, as INTP Enneagram Type 4. So I don't know. I mean, it's like it can be there. What about this? Is a conscientious performer at work, although a slow one? Again, this makes it sound ISTJ.
I would say, again, a conscientious performer at work. I think it's not very the case. I try to have it right. I try to not do a lot of mistakes, but I'm more likely to start quickly with some ideas and just to make some mental plan, or just to have it penciled probably. And then I really don't like work with all of those details. So I can be conscientious, but it's draining for me.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, I'm very slow because I'm very fast at the beginning because I see the vision and I see the idea, and it's the most enthusiastic part for me. So I would say at the beginning, I'm very, very hurry, let's do this. And then as it comes to reality, the worse it is.
I would say if I was writing this and try to sort of like elaborate upon it, sort of like make more sense, I would say that that when an INFP really has a conviction about something, really believes in something, that conviction will make them disciplined because of that. So if they really have a conviction to write a novel, they're really like FI reasons. So for FI reasons, they will be disciplined.
Yeah, it was probably something what I was trying to say at the first point, like with having an interest and then being able to focus a lot.
So it's like if you've got lots of different interests, but it's like, how important is that interest to you because of like a strong FI connection of this thing is really important to me. So it makes sense that if that thing is really important to you for FI reasons, then it's like FI is what is controlling the NE. It's like, so in other words, or in English, the conviction is more important than variety.
Yeah, but it's also, I said it at our last video, that I really don't have this strong need to see all of my ideas in practice, or see all of my goals in practice and in reality, because for me it's important to have them in my mind as an image. I really don't need them to manifest physically. So it's probably also connected to this poor discipline, because for me it's enough if it's only in my mind. So it can look like I don't have any discipline, but I'm not even interested in actually make it real in reality.
So before I ask you, Leon, to go through the same questions, what we can see here is Viktor getting his shots in to classical socionics. Like he literally puts, this is the official definition. He's literally taken a shot at Model A in his actual definition of TI plus.
Well, was it like, because it was defined by, Socionics was created by ENTP, right? So that's TI plus, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Am I supposed to read it now?
Yeah, go on then, Leon. And you can comment on it.
So we have TI plus or plus L.
Yeah.
This is the logic of uniform structure, securing the structure that has been proven to work while considering all other structures incorrect, rationalizing the one and only right decision, stubbornly following your principles, thoroughly reading of directions or drafts, linear either-or way of thinking. This is logic of information socionics as well as structural logic of the ISTP. LSI resembles ISTJ in Kiersey, but with an SP aggressor romance style that is un-SJ.
Yeah.
Not like Kiersey Guardian.
Yeah, it's one of those problem types, LSI. I can give it. They do exist. Vladimir Putin, LSI.
Yeah.
So well, he has qualities of both ISTP and ISTJ.
Well, me and Monica are supposed to be TI plus, right?
Yeah, but now one of the things in the theory is that the stronger the function is, the more both sides of it can be used. But I think what is coming from...
I see that, yeah.
The way it's determined is that Victor sees the temperament, what I call the mindset, as I little j. And because you're a rational type, and it's like I said, you've seen it, Leon, and if you've got very ethical and convinced INFPs with a strong conviction and moral purpose, then the discipline will naturally follow that. It's just like what parents will say about children who are a bit wayward. They'll say they need a purpose in life. Well, FI is very much connected with purpose, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, it's true. So the kind of idea of the INFP is someone who's kind of floating around and dabbling in different things, and then eventually, but very passive. So some very passive and lacking direction. And eventually, after using their expert intuition to explore, really hits them very strongly, and then they feel very motivated to act. Or either that, or maybe they felt they're personally influenced by something. So this is introverted feeling where they run into something, and then they were greatly either traumatized by it, for example. So they become a reluctant hero, and they start to act disciplined. But towards the TI plus direction. So it is like just one kind of like one right way to go, and you go with it. I probably get kind of confused with X-ray thinking too when I'm actually reading this TI plus.
Yeah, it's very similar. Like because in humanitarian socionics, they should make you think is more towards business logic. Like T plus is like it's maximizing profits. T minus is like very conservative business thinker, such as like say going into retail, having razor thin margins and just implementing your business better than the competition rather than coming up with something innovative.
Well, yeah. So TI plus that, it looks. So sometimes when I think I'm following expert thinking, maybe I'm following TI plus, because I think I ran into problems before, like when early in my life where maybe I felt very strongly about something, about doing well in school, or at some point like felt very strongly about being a Christian. So I just kind of like go for it, kind of like in that TI plus way of kind of like rationaling one and only one right decision and following it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it can fit. It can fit because if like you feel really strongly about something,
right?
And this is the way I think it works in INFPs. You have a strong feeling, and if you have a strong feeling about something, your thinking is wants to be led to be like that because it's like you have a logical affirmation for how you feel. And so it's like it would be if you had this strong ethical feeling about something being right, yet you had this wishy-washy thinking like INTP, then it's like because I remember when I used to be extremely left-wing, it's that strength of conviction and being right. I got off on that, and I can see people getting off on that when it's like they have a feeling of being absolutely right, and their thinking lines up with that feeling, so there is no cognitive dissonance. So that might explain part of the reason why INFPs are led towards a clarity of thinking, a clarity of purpose, things like that. I forgot something and I've just remembered it now. This profile is like a very idealistic example of an INFP. This profile is very altruistic. So it's probably a real, even though INFPs are idealistic, they might be looking at this profile and going, wow, this profile's idealistic. So,
you said Ben. So like if you're strong at the function, you express both strongly. So for you feel like you've expressed both TI plus and TI minus strongly.
Oh, and Victor once said because I listened to the first 15 minutes of the Model G quote, and he said that any function. It's weird that he said any function can be accentuated and as strong as the lead function. I think he said that.
Yeah.
So, for example, you can get ENFJs who are mathematical geniuses.
Because of what?
With that TI, inferior TI, you can get ENFJs who are mathematical geniuses. Yeah, but it's not in the normal trend. But
so wait, how does that work? They just their TIs. How does it become strong like that?
Well, because as I said this before about things are not even. They can get their suggestive function on easier than me. I cannot open up a book and get FE. They can open up a good book and get TI.
Oh, it's easier access for them.
Yeah, easier access. Like I said, because it's not even. Whereas if you were to say, before we were in the written age, it would be harder for them to get TI. They would have to know somebody who would provide them with the wisdom, rather than just open up a book and have all the TI. So it's like they've got TI on demand. We cannot get FE on demand.
Okay.
So, like I said, these things are not even. But the models assume that everything is even and symmetrical.
Yeah. Well, I remember kind of thinking like knowing INTPs who kind of need people who are easy access. Like they're like kind of like living with different roommates and all that. Like because I just remember an INTP says she's gonna move to a new place, and then she's worried because living with her boyfriend will be like kind of like she's gonna move in with her boyfriend, and then the problem is that will be easy access in a way, so it's harder for her to break FE from outside.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, just typing a message to somebody. How very rude of me. So I'll just say here, you can actually see in this definition that Victor has put his own school of socionics as an example of TI minus. So this is very much how I think. And I'll ask Monica in a moment, just if she's a bit like this. I need to explain it a bit better because with the other hangouts we've talked about this. But again, all IN types might do this. Logic of fractal structure. By fractal, I mean being fragmented and scalable. I just realized what he meant by scalable. It's like he sees a logic pattern repeating at different levels. And Kersey Jr. does this as well. That's the kind of logic that can see order in chaos and allows describing the same object in multiple ways, the logic of contradictions and paradoxes. Multidimensional polymorphic logic, relaxed and/or alternatives. And then he goes here. That is the logic of synergy socionics. So his own school and the kind of structural logic characteristic of L.I.I. So what he means by this TI minus is the idea is that with TI plus, you believe in it so much that you stick with that one direction. But because it's TI in INTP and TI in INTP is a negativist, it's like, well, I have this theory, but it might not be right. Let's look at this one and this one and this one and this one. And so an example of TI minus that people can understand in typology, on this channel, I try to look at types from different points of view. I'll say Socionics looks at it like this. Kersey looks on it like this. Enneagram looks on it like this. So it's taking different points of view and trying to put those points of view together to get at the greater truth. Now, there's a classical explanation to sort of graphically illustrate this, and that is graphically illustrate. I mean, that's a bit redundant. I should have just said illustrate this. I mean, usually when you illustrate something, it is graphical by definition. So what I sort of mean is that they would do the thing of, from one angle, you see a vertical rectangle, and from another angle, you see a circle. When you put those two viewpoints together, you realize that you're seeing a cylinder because those two angles are put together.
I'm trying to understand the difference between how you do your channel and how I do mine. So, for example, I mean, I do look at the very least the Myers-Briggs and the Socionics, right? So different models.
Actually, quite similar.
Yeah, but there must be a way you're doing. Well, you're doing it in a way that's more. I mean, there has to be some way it's more TI minus. So I'm trying to understand that. Which I bet. I mean, you do definitely go into more complex material.
Yeah, and yours is more psychologically complex in that you're using it more. You're going more towards development and self-help, and that's something that I want to get more into in future.
Maybe like with the TI plus, I think I like to kind of really clarify things in a way, like very like, okay, this is how it's like, or something. Like I do try to like incorporate different theories, but I try to like, I don't know. There must. I would have to kind of look back and see what's the difference. But yours is definitely, you have like a lot of different kinds of materials and kind of, I guess, frameworks for looking at things.
Yeah, but I mean, for instance, you were talking about, you had the Beef model there. That was not a model that I knew about at the time. But what I think is one of the assumptions of Socionics and with these elements is that they think that Victor does it a bit, but we know, because we know temperament, because we know Kersey temperament, we know how things other than functions can affect the way that functions are expressed. So, for example, you've got TI minus here, which seems TI plus here, which seems quite rigid, but it's based on the use by a sensing type. But because you are introverted and intuitive, so introverted and abstract, well, usually abstract people do want to look at things from different angles because that's what they like. They like doing abstractions, and once they're stuck with one abstraction, it gets a bit boring. Because they love the process of thinking of abstractions. And maybe with ISTP and ISTJ, because they're not abstract, it's like they probably want to stick more with the original thoughts. With ISTP, it's probably, with them, it's analyze the situation, then act. When they're in a role, it's saying a computer role, they're using thinking as a tool, not for its own sake.
I think about ISTPs, I get the impression that a lot of them are pretty abstract. Like they'll be interested in talking about the field of sociology, and maybe that's something that people in the beta quadrant do. But like it's like, but I don't necessarily see the immediate applicability of sociology. So I'm trying to understand. Yeah,
I think that's the inferior FE.
Yeah, inferior FE. They definitely want to figure it out, and they look at it abstractly too, in a way. Like
I mean, like they can be E5-ish and things like that. So again, it's how you define TI, and if you define it as subjective thinking, and these things are scales. It's not like abstract, concrete. It's like you've noticed people, you've noticed sensing types, you've noticed people who are in the middle, and then people who are extreme either way.
Right.
That's just the way it is. It's not a dichotomy. It's just it's easier to think of these things with dichotomies. And usually what happens is when somebody lies either side of a dichotomy, that preference gets practiced more, and then it becomes accentuated. But in terms of actual scales, the only thing where that tends to happen, because usually it's a bell-shaped curve for most of the dichotomies. The only one that's a little bit dichotomous is like two separate hills would be to say N versus S. But these days, with the environment that sensing types are in, well, they develop formally intuitive, what we would call intuitive things. But they're sort of using ideas as tools, I suppose. You got every type's using computers these days. In the 1960s, that was heavily biased towards NTs. So,
I just remember reading a forum about, it's kind of a joking forum and says all NTs are bitter because they know one day they'll be replaced by smart computers.
Right. So, Monica, how often do you what's your approach to combining theories? Do you like to combine theories or have one picture?
How often do I come to therapists or what?
No. I was just wondering. No, it was about.
I'm sorry. I'm really tired. So.
Oh, that's okay. I will go easy on you, and I'll go over to. So Leon, you go through these TI plus bullet points and tell me what you think of them.
But Ben, I think I can connect more to TI minus from what I heard.
Yeah, because I think that TI plus is, in my opinion, don't tell Victor, I don't think it's defined right. Because I think it's too influenced by LSI. Okay. And as I said before, it doesn't matter what the function is. We know the type overall is abstract. So deal with it, function people. We know it. And so the abstract speech, they've got abstract thoughts. If they've got abstract thoughts, they're going to love playing with concepts.
But I still think it depends heavily also on intelligence. But we discussed this earlier. So
yeah, that is going to be.
So I won't go into that again.
Yeah, it's true because there's a greater facility there, and we also said that the less intelligent INTPs might not get typed as INTP.
Yeah. How would this abstraction connected to intuitive processes would look like in people who are below average intelligence?
I don't know, because it's really written for people. I mean, it's written by smart people for smart people.
Really. What do you think, Leon, about this?
Oh, are you asking me? What do I think about what?
About if intelligence is connected with ability to make really abstract processes and abstract thoughts, and so how would below average intelligence intuitive people would really look like? Because it would be their ability to make abstract thoughts and understanding to abstract processes, it would be lower because of their lower intelligence. So how would you really can say that they are really abstract intuitives?
Well, I think I can see it in them. But I'll let you go first, Leon. Unless you want me to. Do you want me to go first, Leon, and then?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so my thought is that when you see NFPs that are very much, you can judge NFPs by just how, because they will make mistakes. There's things called the meta model, and it's usually the mistakes that intuitives will make. If you have an INTP that gets stuck to a theory, and it's obvious that the theory doesn't work in reality, then that INTP is not very smart. And also, we have to work out what do we mean by intelligence, because David Kersey Senior did a PhD on what is intelligence. The problem is that intelligence tests only measure 3 of the 7 major kinds of intelligence, and that is visuospatial, and that's even only limited in terms of what is the right one in this sequence and do you turn it around, that kind of thing, chirality, things like that. Linguistic intelligence, what is the next word in this sequence? And then there's also logico-mathematical intelligence. But we don't get the other kinds of intelligence and not really captured in that. Someone could be really good TE practical thinking. They're not going to score highly on those tests. I actually, in the 2014 interview with Victor, I actually asked him about these intelligences and which types are likely to score higher on them. Basically, nearly INTPs and INTJs are going to score higher than average on logico-mathematical. It's just the way that it is, because it's the nature of the functions is very similar to those problems. It's just the way that it is. It's just like if you had tests for people skills and psychological understanding, NFs are going to score higher on that. if you were to ask questions about, say, if you would have literary analysis and to ask the people what is going on inside the heads of the characters, INFJs and INFPs and ENFPs and the NFs are going to score best in that. So certain things, there's certain intelligence. So what Kersey did is he came up with a theory of intelligence that was related to intelligent roles. And so for the SPs, he had the tactical intelligence. They have the ability to improvise and expedite on a very quick tactical level. And what we talked about yesterday, it's that they can act smartly quicker than people can think, because they are so attuned to the situation that their impulses are appropriate to that situation. So that is them being smart. It's like when you talk about in football, you say about a quarterback. What will they say about a quarterback? They'll say the quarterback IQ. There was a quarterback for San Francisco. I think he was called Alex something. He scored very. What was noted about him, he didn't do very well as a quarterback of San Francisco. They said he had one of the highest scores on the Wunderlich test. So his like Mensa kind of IQ was very high, but he didn't have a very good quarterback IQ. So Kersey would say is intelligence is how well you can do your job. So your role that you've chosen to do. And IQ tests are biased towards certain kinds of intelligence. And I've got one here. I've got this test here. So this is something I've looked at. There you go. Mensa logic puzzles. That is, let's see on screen there. So it's biased towards a particular kind of thinker. There's nothing in here for assessing TE. So it's how well. So what we should say by intelligence is, so those three tests, those three things. So intelligence tests, and what we say that somebody is intelligent, what we really mean is that they're quick-witted, and we usually mean intellectual. So it's fair to say nearly all INTPs are intellectual. Now, in terms of the mistakes that they make, the less intelligent INTPs, in my opinion, will be more rigid in their theories. And they're actually less intelligent, in my opinion, because they don't use TE. And they use TI badly. And Dario talks about a function like low-key, high-key use. Is it used with flair? Is it overindulged too much? So yeah, you can see, if you see an intuitive that gets too much in their own theories, or is too NE, and it's not, and it's like, wow, you've really got that function on there, but it's not doing anything for you. It's not, or the person is making mistakes, logical mistakes, then they can still be. I mean, how many, you've read philosophy. Here we go, Monica, here's a question for you. You've read a lot of philosophy, and you probably looked through it and thought, that's very clever, but it's all bollocks. It's all nonsense. So how clever was this person? He had a very elaborate theory, but in hindsight, it turned out to be nonsense, and you could see the errors in their thinking. Is that fair to say?
Well, I think it still was very interesting to see how they were able to get all of those ideas, even if they were all nonsense. It's just fascinating how they could think about all of those.
Yeah, but you can see. Yeah, I was just going to say, but someone with a TE point of view would say, well, that's stupid. What do you keep with that idea for? Don't you filter the ideas for usefulness? You see, from the TE point of view, because TE people can think TI people are very stupid in the big terms, in that, well, why are you spending all that time on that theory? What's that theory going to do for you? Because they like coming up that bottom line thinking. But like I said, that approach of like looking at usefulness of, so to a TE person, they might think something like this. Why are you doing all these Mensa questions and having it? What's that IQ going to do for you? Because it's like, that's a bit stupid, isn't it? Wasting all that time. I've just done this code and earned myself $1 million.
Well, yeah, I think it's true that everyone is will be judging people's intelligence through the paradigm of their first function. There are two ways: through the paradigm of the first function, and also through the paradigm of what we traditionally view as intelligent. So maybe what we view as NT traits. So people will judge it by both of these. Like an SFJ would say, an ESFJ would say, oh, maybe like this INTP like did something. And it's like, oh well, or an INTJ does something and it seems really stupid to ESFJ, and ESFJs would say, oh, that's like really stupid. But then they'll also be judging intelligence in terms of how we define as NT traits. So they'll say, oh, I'm pretty stupid because usually intelligence is described as NT. So they'll go both ways there.
They think NTs, and I had this mistake as well. When I say intelligent, I mean logico, mathematical, what is their insight, deduction, things like that we associate with NTs, and that they prize in themselves. And but Monica's right. It's like close observation. You can see how well a function is used by. If the theory just misses the point, if it's useless, if it's not, if there's lack of awareness, I would say awareness is. So this is a separate hangout, and there's a whole different series. Like better people than me have had written books about what is intelligence and things like that. So I like Kurz's approach of, it's functional intelligence. It's intelligent roles. It's not. It's like I said, you can have the classic example of an INTP that doesn't. They have all these ideas and stick with the system, and they're fantastic at that system, but they don't get anything done, and they can't do anything else.
Well, I see it also like even like I think the role thing makes a lot of sense. At the same time, I also see like maybe like certain roles, like for instance, imagine like NT, they go into an academic environment. Of course, they're going to do very well because they're in NT, but then in a way, they become stupider because they develop more of the traits of not being able to do anything and being stuck in their heads.
Exactly. So it's like each function, each temperament has its own kind of intelligence. And so what you're saying there, Monica, is I would say anyone who is too rigid in their thinking, too rigid in their FI or their ethics, or although sometimes I get that's a natural right. That's not going to be challenged, and in my ESI mode. But I would think that, I think there's some people in Socionics that rigidly stick to, say, Model A, and they don't think about the presuppositions and how things like you. So you can have very intelligent people that they're making mistakes in their thinking, where it's like, well, that's not very intelligent to me. If someone is, say, like you've got the grip of the inferior function, let's say in the grip of the lead function, you can probably get that where it's taken too far. So if you want to know about it, it's in Dario's book where he talks about how a function can be misused. So misuse of a function. So let's say INTPs can get stuck in theory land. Is that an intelligent use of time?
Yeah, there's I also think about like even if we define like certain types as being more mental and others are more kinesthetic, ultimately everything is operated by the brain. So what I mean, like SC, extrovert sensing, introvert sensing, those are still cognitive functions. So their primary mode of operating through the brain. So all intelligence comes through the brain. So all the cognitive functions are forms of intelligences.
But
so probably there is some correlation with Gardner's intelligence theory.
Go on.
Yeah.
What's that? Is that the 7 types of intelligence, or?
Yeah,
I think that there's actually more than.
It's the NS wanted to add the 8th kind to do with environmentalism. I'm like, okay, let's get political. Let's put intelligence with money in there. There's lots of people who are smart with money. I think I've got that here. Is that it?
Yes. Yeah, it is that.
Yeah, we've done. I've asked this. It's like, so for example, with this linguistics, so I actually asked Victor about this in the first hangout I did with him in 2014. I was invited by Everybody else had to pay. I was invited by Elena. I sort of snuck in there. So linguistic. Generally, NFs, on average, are the best at linguistic intelligence because they tend to be into the humanities and novels. They have a facility with words. Generally, they're the best with linguistic intelligence. And there is a predisposition of NTs towards logico-mathematical and also TPs. Visuospatial, ISTPs and ISTJs. The sensory introverts tend to be very good on visuospatial. Bodily kinesthetic, SPs, very good at bodily kinesthetic. Nearly all the best sportsmen and women, SPs. Musical, again, SPs. Interpersonal. Well, usually, now this is what we talk about when we talk about FE and FI. Someone can be very good interpersonally at very close range, probably maybe with an FI thing. You know, say if they're a counselor, it's like feeling what the right appropriate thing. Whereas other people can be very good at sort of like the social interaction where they're not got really close psychological distance, but they know a lot of people. I'm like an ESFJ.
Like knowing how to deal with strangers.
Yeah. It's just like here with intrapersonal intelligence. So you can have loads of INFPs that think they're being authentic, but it's like if they're not in touch with themselves and they haven't got the self-awareness. So what I would say is those intuitives that are not self-aware, that are not aware of the limits of their own lead process, that don't catch themselves on, that aren't balanced out, they are less developed forms, from my point of view, of that type. Because if someone just sticks in their lead function, no matter how smart it gets, they're missing out on other parts of life, in my opinion. This is a bit of a digression here, Monica. Thank you for the NE, but we'll have a separate hangout on this. Would that be okay with you, Monica, if we're going back and look at intelligences and type? But yeah, I mean, generally, according to what they put in intelligence tests, INTPs are going to be above average intelligence just because of what's in the test. Now, if they put other things in the test, like practical thinking and all that kind of stuff, they might be below average in those areas of like things that are important. Because, like I said, not everything that counts can be counted. Not all intelligences can be put in a test. I mean, look at these ones here. How many of these can easily be put in a test? Pretty much just those three I mentioned. Linguistic, logico-mathematical, and visuospatial.
Some degree bodily kinesthetic have a race, run a race.
Yeah. So where are we? We were here. So Leon, if you go through TI Plus, I don't know if you've gone through it already. I can't remember.
Go through TI Plus.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Oh, it's frozen up. Right then.
So I think the key word is
no, there is
it's known. So that means I appeared good discipline on the outside, which can be true. Like
oh dear, we should be back. So what we can do, Monica, is if we go through the FI minus, let's see how true this is.
Okay, or I can sing to show you that my musical intelligence.
Well, go on then. Let's go on then. I have 10 seconds.
No. I'm just joking. But really, I think that everyone can feel like they're smart thanks to this kind of theory. It's really great. And Leon is back. Great, thank you. You just saved me from singing, and you saved all audience.
Wait, you said saved you from what?
From singing.
Oh, I want to hear you sing. Can I hear you sing?
No.
I'll sing too if you sing.
Maybe at the end of the video as a, you know,
as a prize.
At least, yes, a surprise for audience who will wait for it.
Okay.
Right. So Leon, because I know you've got to go in about 20 minutes. Is that correct, Leon?
Yeah, about so, yes.
Right. So if you quickly go through TI Plus, and then we can get on to Monica with the FI.
Okay. So it's like it's reserved and known for its good discipline. So I think the key word is the words is known. So I think on the outside I do appear to have good discipline, but I'm kind of like actually like a lot of time I'm actually kind of a lazy person. But like if I but it's true that if I find something that I'm passionate about, then I kind of become really obsessive about it. But I think the problem is that when I am really onto something I care about, I'm very conscientious, but I do it very slowly, and that's why I have to be conscientious. Is because I kind of like get stuck at every step of it and labor very slowly. So I have to work on it very hard as a result. And if I learn how to like do things faster, I don't have to be, I don't have to work as hard on it. So I do hide my feelings and kind of pretend I'm calm. So people do know me as being very calm in front of people, but inside I'm more tumultuous in my emotions.
Right. Monica will be back in a moment. So Leon, if you go through FI minus and talk about how similar or not you are to this, or if you think it's true of INTPs in general.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes there could be a distance. I think it depends on the level of development of extrovert feeling. So some INTPs, they look like their form of extrovert feeling looks kind of universalistic, meaning it's accepting of everybody. And so when people come up, they know how to behave socially in a way. Yeah, they could kind of keep, but a lot of INTPs do keep their distance from people. But I think they can make pretty reliable friends. So when it says, well, maintain and protect a relationship network, so I think when they do become your friend, it's kind of pretty reliable because maybe they're just used to it. I do see the strongly disapprove of morals around, because I do see the reaction on the faces of INTPs when someone is doing something they don't consider ethical. I do see that they have a reaction, but they don't say anything about it. Yeah, cold and distance. I think I kind of touched upon what I think about it.
So to maximize our time with you, so we did that with a TI Plus. So this is what somebody wrote about. This is in a book called Building Blocks of Personality Type. It was recommended to me by somebody. So there you go. So because we're short on time, you know what to do, audience. All right, if you're interested, pause it. We're short on time with Leon here. So, and then this is what Carl Jung wrote about TI.
New views rather than knowledge of new facts the main concern. Okay.
All right, so, and then now to FI. So as Jeff says here, we did this joke, better check FI. So now we're going to check FI. And so this is how so.
Oh, can I read that? I
will read that. There we go.
I do want to read what Jeff said. Yeah. The other day I was about to leave my apartment when the phone rang. I checked the caller ID and didn't answer it. So God or Carl Jung was trying to speak through his phone. That's funny.
Yeah. So this is how Socionics defines FI, so people can see that. But you see here, look, it goes straight to ethics. So my theory being that, my understanding being that FI is just the mechanism of ethics of relations. Ethics of relations is just the effect of interacting with people based on your subjective feelings and identification and all the stuff that we went through last time. And when we went through, we talked about rapport again last time. So part 1, we talked about rapport and connection and empathy. And there's Carl Jung on FI. Monica is back. So are you able to, have I done all the FI slides? Oh, okay, there's some introverted feeling there. And then some more there. And there. And that's the FI sheet that I've done, the pros and cons of it.
Yeah, I remember this.
Yes. And it's got the spelling mistake there. Over personalizes. And then I got this here. This is Catherine Tim for Libertarian. And so she's spoofing a SJW. Don't manterrupt me. Take your microaggressive mansplanations elsewhere. I'm going to stand here and protest until it becomes everyone's warehouse. Right, so, and then we've got this, the INFP's reaction to Donald Trump. This up there. We don't need a test to tell us what his words and behaviors already convey. And then I put, have an extra INFP point. Right. Right, here we go. So, and then here's a difference in the brain. So this can say that at least the Nardi Berens INFP is the opposite of ESTP, just like in Socionics. And then this is just a joke. Somebody, again, this relates to INFPs. So Google Translate. So this is asking about somebody's video. Why is there no advertising? Do you not monetize? Are you Jesus or what? Jesus doesn't monetize his YouTube videos. So back to this. You are back with us, Monica. So FI minus, if we go through this.
Okay. Keeps its distance from people, may seem stern, aloof, and uncaring. Well, I would say I would love to keep more distance from people. And if I have the opportunity, a lot of time I do keep my distance. But I try not to seem uncaring. Although I seem uncaring in providing some actual, real physical care. So it seems very uncaring because I'm not the ready to host you type. So really it depends on how you define the word uncaring and probably even the word aloof. So number 2, it will maintain and protect the relationship network it grew accustomed to. It means like you were maintaining for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I try to do that more than probably receiving new friends. I think I'm trying to keep people who are for a long time with me. If it still works, if these relationships still works. And I also think there are always a lot of ways how you can maintain those relationships if you really want to.
Right.
So you do identify a bit with FI minus, right?
So far, yes.
Yeah, and interesting. You also identify with TI minus as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, she's on the fence. That's, I mean, it was Monica's idea.
No, I said maybe. I mean, I know you. I had an opinion at one point, which, you know, I'm not committed to. By the way, is that you're an ISFP?
Ooh.
Yes.
Ooh, Leon.
So I think with the FI minus and then TI minus, that, I mean, I'm saying that fits into the ISFP model.
In Socionics or in MBTI?
I believe so. Would you say so, Ben?
FI minus,
TI minus.
I believe Monica very much fits the pattern that she is an introverted NP. That I'm quite clear on. Sense of humor is NP.
Okay. Yeah.
And Leon, you think ISFP in MBTI or in Socionics?
Well, Socionics, that would be an ISFJ, ESI. So those are just my thoughts. I don't like to say, oh, you're deaf. You know, I don't like to say people are, you should be this or that. I say, I notice a certain pattern. Like if it's FI minus, TI minus, then those tend to correspond with the ISFP. So, yeah.
Well, that's a future hangout, and then go see Leon's channel, Type Tips, for that moment with Monica and Leon.
I also, I mean, I just have my own opinion. I guess, I don't know, maybe I just, but they're just my opinions too. I also think Bradley is the INTJ.
Oh my God, Leon, your typing reputation might go down the toilet. You think Bradley's INTJ? Wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So are there other ones you would like to comment on there, Monica?
Comment other...
Well, have you commented on all of the numbers in FI minus?
Well...
But are worth commenting on?
Probably the last one.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm appear cold and distant with strangers. I try not to.
Right.
But again, I need to force it a little bit. But over time, I definitely pick up relationship nuances. It's what I do all the time, just trying to pick how human works. Right. And how these relationships are established.
Right, so we did all the FI jokes, and then we got to the launcher position. I don't know if Leon's going to give us an extension. We've got pessimal energy. So this is the eyes are bigger than its belly function, where you get really, really... people like the idea of it, but when it comes down to it, they've not got the energy to do it. So... this function is position. The function in this position, the launcher position, is triggered from the outside and thus referred to as launcher. So INTPs and INFPs are sensitive to SI things. And we'll go through that in a moment. It is the most sensitive and is about new data input or collecting the feedback. And also in the model, the control function is also, because it's in the same column, pessimal energy, is also very sensitive but low energy. Because it is very sensitive, the function of this position is chronologically first, i.e. it launches a new round of mental activity. So in INFP, as it's seeing suffering in other people, stimulates their ethics. This is not right, we need to do something about this. We need to nationalize all industries.
Not nationalized. We have to bring it to a world industry.
Controlled
by the UN. Yeah. And apparently the right people will be in charge, right?
He said so Leon, on Monica's type. So do you think that Monica is ISFP in MBTI?
I mean, I get the feeling of that.
Right.
But that's just my own feeling too.
Right.
I would say I'm very weak in both extroverted and introverted sensing, but maybe I just see myself completely wrong. However, I think it's not very possible because I do a lot of introspection and trying to be really critical to how I watch myself, but I'm open to alternatives and to mistakes in my thinking. So it's possible, and I'm looking forward to our meeting to see arguments for SI and SE.
I'll just, to balance it out, I'll just say, Monica, that I don't think you resemble ISFP, and I also don't think Bradley resembles INTJ. I've had quite a lot of conversations with him. So don't be worrying.
Yeah. Anyway, you definitely either way, you probably strongly developed your other side. So you at least along those dimensions of sensing and intuiting, you've come to balance. You've been because yeah, I think so.
Maybe.
Can you guys hear me?
Again,
Yeah.
to be honest, you are very tactical. You are keying up the video that will be on your channel and be very interesting. So yeah, so Leon, because we've only got 6 minutes left with you, if you quickly go through each bullet point on both panels, and then we can go back to Monica.
Okay. Oh, okay. I'll do like a 10-minute extension, by the way.
Oh, thank you, Leon. I feel like
yeah. SI minus. It's so funny, because it's because I have to go to a doctor's appointment, but then we're reading about infrared sensing right now, and.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Kersey thinks most doctors. Kersey, in terms of stereotypes, Kersey thinks most medical doctors are ISFJ.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the natural role of being protector and thinking about people's internal bodily harmony. He says they make especially good GPs, and he said the hospital is the natural home for the protector, for the ISFJ.
Well, I know a lot of like SFJ, like health coaches, or beauty and health coaches. So,
yeah, I think it's right. I think most doctors, I think most GPs are SJs.
GPs, okay. Okay, is modest and undemanding. Yeah, I'm pretty undemanding. And it's the same thing with the INTP. I see kind of modest requirements. I only need like a few things. Like if I go traveling, I like to travel, but when I go traveling, I never collect any souvenirs. Like I just need like my guitar and my computer and a bed. So that's it. So make someone who values SE very sad. So rejects any sort of food delicacy and flashy self-presentation. Yeah, I do kind of don't like flash, like a lot of flashiness. I think I do notice some INTPs and INFPs sometimes, because SE is kind of in their they feel like society expects it of them. So maybe when they become neurotic, they start to think about, oh, how would I look with like sunglasses and bright clothing and all that.
And look awkward.
So I think it's definitely possible.
Yeah. Oh, have you frozen?
It started to become like,
you're back.
Concern about such matters. Cares for its real boost, for it really boosts its mood and prompts it to action. Yeah, I feel like if I try to ignore SI, then my mind gets, and I think, oh, I should be working harder. But then like it's only after I like do something nice, like I take a shower, and then my mind's calm, then I feel rejuvenated. But I feel like I need it more than other people. So some people don't need all these like SI comfort traits, and I kind of need that. It's loyal to those who offer it. Yeah, I kind of like, if someone does that, like kind of tucks me into bed, then I'll like give you like extra brownie points.
Oh. there's an open admission of the infantile in quotation marks.
Yeah, there's something like there's some SI seeking for sure. Loyal to those who offer it this kind of support. Yeah, is proactively compassionate when facing people's discomfort, diseases, illnesses, physical limitations. Yeah, I feel like if they get in my circle, then I'll be very concerned about these things.
And now
providing physically, yeah.
Yeah. So, but also as an NF, you would probably help them on a psychological level as well, because that's what NFs are good at.
I do like a combo of the psychological and the SI. Like if you're doing, for instance, deep breathing and visualizations and meditations.
Right. Basically, the audience can see there the differences, because we're short with time with Leon. So if you go to SI plus, so you see the difference here that SI minus is about minimizing the negative, minimizing discomfort.
I think that's definitely true for me. I do. Right. It's more like my focus on SI is to get rid of discomfort. Right. And I remember EJR&D once said that he believed that INFPs invented ASMR.
Maybe.
Which I could totally imagine myself inventing if I was like female with long nails.
That could be a novel. That could female with long nails.
Yeah, female with long nails, and it's like it's about reducing on stress and tension in others in a creative way, like in any kind of way, like tapping your fingers. I just felt really good when I did that, by the way, when I started tapping my fingers. Anyway, SI plus TI and NX has modest requirements for comfort at home. I see that. The most important for them being it must have good conditions for doing the work it loves. Yeah, there's something more plus about it. I see like INTP friends, they're seeking a plus SI because I just remember my INTP friend decided to use expert intuition to invent a way to double his SI intake by taking a shower while eating a pie at the same time. That's definitely very SI
That's
plus.
Like George Costanza. What Seinfeld, what he did was what he wanted to do was having sex with a woman. And he was eating some food as well. And he said what he wanted to add to this mix to make it the best was to add some television into the deal. And it all came to naught where it was all he couldn't have those three things at the same time. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Actually, he gets typed as INTP. George Costanza sometimes, so maybe he would be an example of a less intelligent INTP, George Costanza, because I know he also gets typed as 6. Some people have typed George Costanza as INTP.
I mean, I also see INTPs like, well, this is true of anybody. It really depends on what circle you're in. So you maybe you could say NTs are generally maybe nerdy, but there's all different types could find themselves in any kind of circle. So when you go to a high school, you see at the different cliques, the cool clique, the nerdy clique, whatever clique, you're going to see SPs and also NTs too. Like in the cool clique, you're going to see STs, and there's going to be INTPs in there, and INFPs to some extent. And then even in a nerdy clique, there might be more NTPs, but then at the same time, you're going to find ESFPs there as well, because that's my own experience. But Leon, and then they're going to take on the trends, yeah.
So Leon, if you look at this guy and read through that, let me know. What
I remember I saw you. I think you showed me this. You showed me this before.
I think this guy's temperament is clear as day to me. This guy
is that temperament.
I think this guy is so SJ and so SI Dom.
Yeah. But with that like really bright smile is almost like a FE smile.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Once a week I heard the local beach to pick up litter trash that people have left there. Wind has blown there. Okay, there's like quite a lot of litter. Buying combo reacher. Stick is lightweight, easy to use, very precise. What I'm really excited about, Ben, is I wanted to see any difference between INFP and INTP. Do you have a slide for that?
Well, we'll be doing that next time, Leon.
Oh yeah, that's next.
That's next when we look at NETE for INFP and NEFE for INTJ.
That sounds pretty exciting.
INTP. So we have here a few more SI jokes. Well, this is just now. I like the fact that this book put there has a high level of internal body awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And again, look at this comparison. So you can see SI working in conjunction with NE. I think those two functions are very integrated, just as I see NI is very integrated with SE. Because it's like, there's the goal, and SE is like trying to push towards that goal. And usually with NFs, it's about moving other people towards those goals, especially with the reserved ones. So there's a little bit there on SI. People can see that. Subjective internal filters. I actually like their definition of SI. So people can pause that, read it, take it in. We only have so much time with Leon. I've got to get through these jokes. Anyway, this is actually something from Pat Patterson. You're interested in music, Leon. So if you read through that in your mind, You can let us know whether you think it's true.
Turn down the lights, turn on the bed, turn down these voices inside my head. Where do these words take you? Do they make you see something? Am I reading everything? What kind of bed? Or just the SI? Okay, when a lyric stimulates and provokes your senses, you draw the images from your own experience.
Subjective.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the subjective part of it. You're drawing it from your own experiences.
Mm-hmm. It pulls the listener into song by using his memories. Okay.
It's like I once saw the expression of Pat Patterson, but I think Pat Patterson is ISFP. He even wears a leather jacket, and he's all about the prosody. We talked about that in the hangout yesterday with ISFP Part 1, Kersey, ISFP Part 1. So basically, my words, your stuff, because like I said, it's the subjective part of SI. SE ones are more objective. Now, this is Jung on SI. I like his definition of SI. People can pause it and read that, and I'll zoom in.
With a picture of Sigmund Freud over there.
Yeah, I don't know why. Because he was more seen as TE, but I don't really want to go into that. This is Kersey on associative speech in SJs. I don't know if I've shown this to you, Leon. I'll just let you quickly scan that.
Yeah, I probably need to go soon, though. So.
Right, that's the thing. Because so the basic idea is they've got associative speech, but it's on a concrete level. It's not like NPs where it's associative on an abstract level. So you can see what the NE looks like in SJs. That's why I call it SI Max NE or SJNE. So basically here, tip for talking to SJs, you can still tangent, but be concrete.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, I was thinking so SJ types would have certain advantages about NE that NE types don't, and vice versa. Like, what I mean by that is, like, we have SI in third position, but we have NE in a second position, right, Ben? But we could use NE cleverness in order to do SI stuff. Kind of like my INTP friend who was taking a shower while eating a pie at the same time. So it's like they do get SI benefits that a usual SJ type won't have. So.
Yeah, but other people might be looking at that and saying, that is a bit silly. You're going to be eating a soggy pie because you're eating a pie.
Yeah, but I think we have certain events, meaning like with the NE, it could invent SI, like meaning SI methods, like inventing ASMR. Like ASMR is like a creative way to express SI. Whereas
it's a creative way to get out of PE.
Yeah. And I think like SJ, like they have, because they have certain advantages with NE in that they could, they could find some way to make the environment better with NE. I'm trying to think of a way.
I've got 4 slides left for you, Leon. So we've got this. I thought such an SJ name for a ship. HMS Inflexible. Lovely. And then this is what Carol wrote about SJs and being on time. And like I said, did she let me quote her? So people can take that in.
Yeah.
This is an Indian place. Use the right tool for the right job in the right way. There's your SJ. And then this is something you'll like, Leon. So this would climax on this. If you read that, that is various definitions of SI. Have I put this bit in where Anthony Stevens talk about it? I don't think so. Actually, I've shown the wrong one because that's a little bit. It's not like the early one that's a little bit too INTP. Yeah, that's a little bit too of an INTP slide.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, maybe I'll go head out now. But thanks.
Okay, yeah.
For having
go
me.
Back to SI.
This has been great.
Thank
okay,
you,
bye, Monica. Bye, Ben.
Right, now we go back to. I think we went through all the FI, didn't we, Monica? And then I know what we could do because we've got a little bit more time with you. So if I show you TI here, we can see what you think of it.
Okay. You mean how it applies to me?
Yeah.
Has an inner focus on logical analysis? I would say yes, almost always. I'm thinking about how things make sense to me, or analyzing myself, analyzing others. Wants to make decisions based on an inner framework of principles and truth.
That sounds both to me, that second one.
How does it sound?
That sounds both. I mean, that equally applies to INFP and INTP, if not more INFP.
Yeah, because there are principles and truth, which are very FI, I guess.
And interestingly enough, a slight digression. Yesterday, the ISFPs were both Imogen and Shannon were both talking about getting towards the truth of things. Now that third one is very INTP.
Create, process, and refine a grid-like system. What is grid-like?
Well, Monica, you've been looking at one for the past 2 hours. Model G is an actual grid, yes.
Okay.
This goes here, that goes there. It's like they said in the Twilight Zone pilot, Pigeon, the client said about the psychologist, the therapist, oh, I see you like to pigeonhole my responses. This goes here, that goes there, this goes here. So it's like pigeonhole things. So it's like, this goes in FE, this goes in FI. So that's what it is. It's like a grid-like categorization of things. And like I said, you can have maybe an INTP do that, and somebody can look at them and think, well, that's not very intelligent, because you're reducing everything to you're being very reductionist and missing a lot out. So there are ways to see less intelligence, I think, in INTPs. And it's like, if they get in the grip of their lead function and can't see the wood for the trees, I would say that they are less intelligent.
Well, I definitely don't have that point. Focuses upon how tasks get accomplished. I don't focus on how tasks get accomplished.
I think that's for ISTP.
Yeah. I'm not focused on that practical accomplishing. I would say I seek internal precision before I say something, or before I well, I seek it, but it doesn't mean that it's precise and perfect all the time. But I would say I see this. It's important for me.
Yeah.
This clarity, this internal clarity, is driven to understand systems in terms of logical relationships. If A, then B. Yes, with people.
It's almost like when you tell me you're a 4, it's like, well, if a 4, if Enneagram 4, then this. And it's like, if you
it's more like I'm trying to find the way how it can be possible logically.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find to go with some arguments to get it sense, to find out those arguments. Yeah.
You can see how open-minded I am. It's not as if I'm skipping by all the TI stuff and go to the FI stuff, assuming you're INFP. Let's dig down on the TI. So the way that they think of this going on, does this?
But we have a new tip in our game, because Leon, it seems like he's very convinced about me being ISFP. So maybe we should pay attention to.
Oh yeah, I think it would be I think it would be a very interesting video on his channel.
I'm not sure if he wants to put it on his channel, really.
We'll have to see. That's up for him to decide.
Yeah, but I can tell you later how it.
Yeah, and it's up for you as well. I mean, you might not want it on his channel. So.
Yeah.
So what about this? Does this ring true for you?
That's a logical framework that contains precise categories. This category. Well, okay, for me, it can be precise, but for others, it can look like very different.
Yeah.
I mean, it really depends who is looking to this? Who is the one who evaluates this?
Yep. That's one of the things, like from inside.
Yeah,
INTPs and INFPs, TiNx and FiNx are both, they're internally organized, externally not so much.
Yeah, definitely. I think that internally, well, a lot of people don't see it because I really show as very disorganized person. Well, it's connected to the discipline we were discussing earlier. I just really have things internally systematized, or but I don't care if I really take it outside like this, if it makes sense.
Yep, it does mean it's like the inner, it's that IJ thing. It's your, okay, how about this? In INFP, it would be they want their thoughts clear because they want their thoughts clear about their feelings. And INTP is going to do that as well. Again, they want their thoughts clear.
It's true.
Yeah. Because they're rational types and they spend a lot of time in their heads and they're abstract. So they want to know what they think of it. Like I said, it's hard to know because Aristotle didn't want to split up thinking and feeling. So it's tricky. Although there are some people out there who are clearly have a preference towards thinking and feeling. It's just that both of us are in the middle when it comes to that.
Lends itself well to understanding work processes. It means like it's self-motivated to understand it like individualistic way.
Let's have a look. Which one? Right. Okay, that might be a little bit more towards ISTP. And it might also sound a little bit more like TI+. I see what it means. Yeah. Understanding it, but doing it is different. It's sort of like understanding the system. Okay, I can see why they've done it like this. If it makes sense, they can see it. But usually sometimes what can maybe throw us is if the system works, but is illogical, then we don't, I mean, we have problems understanding it because we're judging it, because we're comprehending it, something by its internal logic. But if it works anyway, then we have a problem because we have a problem getting over the fact that, yeah, but it doesn't make sense. Then somebody else, it doesn't matter, it works. Yes, but it doesn't make sense. Right. And then let's see if this is true as well. Again, that sounds like INFP as well.
The first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so what people can learn from this is just see just how much TI INFPs do use. But again, it's in service of something else. It's to think about their feelings, to rationalize their thoughts. It's just the little differences in terms of what leads what. And it's only in rare instances that you get a clash. So, for example, a good example I give to people is thinking about the minimum wage. People might think, oh, wouldn't it be a good idea if everyone was paid £50 an hour or $50 an hour? But then if you work through the TI of that, well, what would happen if everybody was paid that much an hour? So there we go. But then that's bringing in TE. Right, so if you read through this, Monica, and then let us know what you think of this. A little bit of the original.
New use rather than knowledge of new facts are its main concern. what seems to it of paramount importance is the development and presentation of the subjective idea of the initial symbolic image hovering darkly before the mind's eye.
That bit right there, sorry for the interruption, is because, well, that's NI. Mr. Young there has concentrated too much on TI with NI, in my opinion. That's very INTP, but...
Mind's eye, yeah.
Sorry.
Its aim is never an intellectual reconstruction of the concrete fact, but a shaping of the dark image into a luminous idea. Its task is completed when the idea it has fashioned seems to emerge so inevitably from the external facts that they actually prove its validity. Introverted thinking shows a dangerous tendency to force the facts into the shape of its image, or to ignore them altogether in order to give fantasy free play.
Yeah, the actual full thing is clearer than that, and I've sort of marked it. And we can have a separate hangout where we go through what Carl... Would you be interested in that, Monica, where we look at what Carl Jung actually wrote about TI?
It could be interesting.
Yep, very good. Because certain things... And then we did the thing on... We went through the FI stuff with Leon, so there's Jeff's FI joke. I don't know if you saw that.
Probably not.
Right. Well, there you go. I wanted to see that. And then if this is FI stuff, I should have shown this last week.
Yeah, you also showed it briefly today, I think. It sounds also like Enneagram 4.
Yeah, that's the thing.
The first sentence.
Yeah.
Generally misunderstood.
You're right. Yeah, it does sound very full.
Yeah, and also a little intuitive.
Yeah.
Those pieces about underlying images and unconscious. Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if Carl Jung was around now and we could invite him on the channel?
Yeah. Hang out with him.
Talk to him about the new Enneagram theory and all that kind of stuff.
You could explain model we to him.
Yeah.
Or maybe we could, summon him. It could be a new level of your channel.
Well, I mean,
have all these spiritual boards.
Well, I mean, I think Tamara would become the ultimate INFJ. She could somehow bring him back in consciousness through the collective unconscious, connect to him on the psychic plane, and channel his viewpoint. So yeah,
I think it would be one of the most popular videos.
Excellent.
In the field of typology.
So Monica, on a practical question, how much time do we have left?
Well, for me, I think 30 minutes.
That's okay. Right. Okay. So do you want to say anything more about this, or?
Probably no. We could return to those SI things.
Okay, so if we have a look at these bullet points here about FI.
Okay, FI again. Okay.
Yeah.
It's subjective decision-making process that is based on personal value. Okay, but here's the thing with personal value. If a logic is my personal value, that it can seem like, well, I mean, basically anything can be your personal value.
Yeah, it's like, again, it's the I(j)'ers, the introverted rational types. They're doing the both thing. It's just not necessarily, there's only certain instances where it comes into conflict. And as I said before, when someone is an FI user and they're introverted and they're intuitive, they're going to be doing a lot of abstraction, and therefore there's got to be thinking involved with abstraction. It's hard to be abstract without thinking. It's like where they have, it's like TI break in ENFP. It's like if you were to think that, you think, wait a minute, ENFPs, they can be quite intellectual and discuss ideas and things. How are they weak at TI? Well, what they're weak at, ENFPs, is following a rigid structure. Most people would agree that ENFPs are weak at that, following a rigid. So you can see that there's some validity in the definition of TI plus, in that ENFPs are really weak at it.
Okay, but so I would say I don't let myself to influence a lot by the group, or maybe outwardly, but internally I still think, or I still hold through to my values. It's hard to change them from an outside.
Yeah.
Holds private and non-negotiable core values deep within. Yeah, I hold it deep within, and a lot of people maybe aren't aware of my values. I don't share a lot of really private things with anyone.
Fair enough.
So, accepts life as it happens and embraces the individuality of others up to a point. Well, accepts life as it happens. I mean, I definitely accept others. I don't like change anyone, because I also don't want anyone to change me. And well, sometimes I'm not, you know, I'm in a room force, so I really don't think I would accept life happily how it is, because I can see a lot of things which are not just as good as they should be. But I don't try to force anything and to change something violently. I'm not this type of person, so to some extent, I could agree with this point.
I think part of the reason why that's phrased like that in the third bullet point is they're trying to work in a bit of SFP is in with the SE, and also all FPs, so FI ego types, well, you know, they've got a, well, their P is an MBTI. So you've got that externally, they're perceivers, accepts life as it happens. So that's going to be a part of it. So that's part of it, if you see what I mean. I think that third one, because obviously it's not just FI in INFP. It's like, what does FI look like into the SFPs? And so for ESFP, so it's like, we talked about this yesterday with the difference between INFP and ISFP is that, and Imogen was talking about her friend is INFP and she's ISFP, and her friend was saying, hey, you feel really strongly about this issue. Why don't you go on this march? It's like she didn't want to go on the march. And it's like, I think it's because ISFPs respect other people's freedom so much that they're not about having, if they have the same strength of values as INFP, they're not about then creating it into a rules-based system that they want everybody else to get with the program and cooperate. Because part of the SP temperament is to be very individualistic, whereas NFs tend to have more of a mentality of people working together in harmony. Those are the trends, and this is why NFPs especially can tend towards to be more left-wing in their political viewpoints, because they see commonalities in those viewpoints because of a collectivist mindset of, if only we just work together, things would turn out well.
I wouldn't say I'm very collectivistic. I'm rather work alone.
Right.
And I also think that you can actually maybe get a better result when you are just yourself. Okay, quietly peaceful, grounded aura. Well, probably other people should tell this, but probably yeah. I wouldn't think grounded aura because people more often see me as someone who is out of reality and who is more etherical. So it's not very grounded, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's more for SFPs.
Yeah. But peaceful, probably yes. Does not tolerate violations of its core beliefs. Yes, that's true. And if someone does that, I'm trying to avoid those people because I don't like conflicts.
No.
So I'm not the type who is very able to fight back or to be very defensive. So I probably try to avoid.
So hopefully not like that in the hangout with Leon. No, I'm not going to defend myself, Leon. Okay, I'll go along with your SFP. I won't defend that typing. Defend against that typing. But I think at the end of that hangout, it will see INFP with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I believe that you will talk about the extroverted sensing things, and then you have problem in those situations. Now, this one to me, ethics of relations, relates to people one-to-one for a fine-tuned sensitivity to the inner life of others. That's the mechanism, the fine-tuned sensitivity to the inner life of others. Now, sometimes this can go wrong and become projection and mind reading of other people. But if the person is healthy, then the FI can be very powerful in getting an idea of what the other person is probably thinking.
I do that a lot. Ask my husband.
Right. Yeah, and one of the stereotypes is, how did you know? Women's intuition.
And seeks inner harmony. Yeah, I do that. And well, probably more than seeking outer harmony.
All right, so we can see if you think this is true as well.
Is the most subjective of the 4 decision making. Well, I don't know. I'm trying to be objective, but maybe I'm not. So it's very subjective in the end, and from some other perspective or from other view.
I think it is. I think it's the most, because it's your own feelings. At least you can say that with logic, that it's when it's thinking. Well, for a start, when you're having your own feelings, you're not doing it in somebody else's language. Whereas when you're thinking, you are thinking in our language that somebody else created. And so that's very much influenced by, I mean, just things like, things in language, like how you pursue our nature, our being is used. So for instance, I think in Russian, it would say, so for instance, if they're saying that somebody is lyric, they might say, "Это lyric." But they don't say, "This is." Because for me, there's big things in English about the nature of being. Is, am, were, am. So it's like, what is that focus on the nature of being? Is someone really a type? Whereas the way Russian works, they may not be thinking about that as much. Or they might perceive time differently. So for the Greeks, the future was behind them, and the past was in front of them, receding into the distance. So the way they view time is very, very different. So, but I think that if we say that introverted feeling literally is the feelings that you have inside before you even start thinking about it, then yeah, I can see that that's the most subjective for the person.
Well, I would agree with the second point.
Right.
Because if there is some concept or some idea, or when there is some cause which I really think could change some views which I judge as not very just,
right,
and that they are oppressing to someone, I'm trying to I'm trying to share another point of view or some alternative, because I would wish to change how these people think about something, or not necessarily to change it, change their views, but offer them some alternative so they could get another option.
right. There we go. That's like removing the interaction styles, directive versus informing. Here's another option. Have you looked at it like this? Rather than directive. You're wrong. Well, this is the way to look at things.
Well, no, I'm not directive at all.
Yeah. So we know that as then that, and again, both INFP and INTP resemblers are both informing, not directive types.
And I would definitely agree with focus on the individual, not the collective. Because I have more more empathy for that individual, and I think that is always necessary to understand a specific traits of individual, or the specific story, that everyone should have their own space and their own understanding. Yeah.
We could have a separate discussion and a different hangout as to what I could then take that, how far then that goes for you with, like you said, focus on the individual, not the collective. Is that then consistent with your politics? Are you therefore a libertarian and want the minimal role for government because your focus is on the individual rather than the collective? But that is a separate hangout and a long debate. So that's a little bit of a naughty question from me, because it's like I'm looking for consistency there, because that is the weird thing with NFs, where it's like they're both on the individual, but then they also there's a collectivist element to them, and the way it comes out is quite nuanced. And frequently I'm not able to explain it well. Oh, there we go. I think did we talk about the non-negotiable elements?
Probably just briefly. Yeah.
It may have been it's something there. It's like it's pretty much repeated from earlier on, I reckon. So if we go on to that next one.
Okay. Their beliefs are personal and not influenced by the established value systems of their culture. I think that at the beginning we all are probably influenced by values, but then it's up to everyone what they do with it. I mean, someone just stay within those established values of their systems, and some will define their values differently, but well, again, where is the borderline between what is established by your system and what is something you truly choose to use on your own?
They think they are. I would say if you talk to them about it, they will think their beliefs are very personal, but a lot of times they've like taken in various things. So it's like, oh, well, of course you think like that.
I think, for example, marriage.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, it can be just something what is need to do and what is established by society. But for someone, it can be also very deeply personal value, representing something more spiritual and more more deep. But again, if you say marriage, then it's more. I think it's more like a system quality in it.
I mean, the process is this, but the individual who maybe prefers that process, they also have access to the other side. So, for example, all FI DOMs are FE control. That means they have a lot of information for FE, but they don't follow it if it conflicts with the FI. All FI auxiliary types are FE creative. So ENFP and ESFP are FE creative, and they use FE as a tool. And ENFPs frequently can get caught between wanting acceptance and approval from others, FE, and being authentic. So, and in Model A, all of the FI ego types would have FE in that lower id block, one of the strong blocks. So the function might be that, but in the individual, so basically, in other words, FI ego types have access to a lot of FE information, and FE types have access to FI information. It's just that they tend to ignore it.
Maybe we could see them as I read through the second point. Maybe we could see, for example, gender roles as a synonym for these existing cultural norms, probably.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way Carl Jung describes FE. It's like very much, it's SJs tend to imbibe the values of their society.
Yeah, and I think it can also be probably a mix. I mean, if this introverted feeling, it can be a mix of something you value in culture, but then you also mix it with, or for example, with these gender roles, that you put something which you like from this role and something which you like from that role, or from various religions.
But I can give an example of probably SJs going against the government in China. And there was this scandal, there was this child abuse at this private school in China. And what happened was people demonstrated in China, a political demonstration in China. Now, that's how much people like their kids, that they're willing to demonstrate politically in China, which is a very dangerous thing to do. So they will stand up for their kids. So, and that was on there's a channel out there, folks, called China Uncensored. So, and probably a lot of those people who were probably SJs, so they're going up against the authorities for the sake of their kids. So it's not black and white when it comes to someone's temperament. So for example, you might have an SJ parent, and they're in a society that says, say, at age 8, your second-born son must be sacrificed. You know, you're still going to have your own feelings about that. And it says, no, that's not going to happen. So people can go against their temperament preferences. But not all SJs are social robots. Not all FE types are social robots. And in fact, when Raquel was here last time, she talked about the battle within herself between the FE and the FI. And it's all there, but she wants to have harmony with other people. So so it is there in the individual. Over to you. I can't remember where we are.
Well, me neither. But I don't have much time left.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for informing me. So yeah, so people can see that. So basically, any one of those, any particularly stand out to you?
Well, anything.
Okay.
I think good. Maybe we should go briefly to those SI plus and SI minus.
Okay.
It will be very quick, I guess.
Okay.
Well, so is modest and undemanding in everyday life. Yeah, I believe I am maybe too modest and undemanding. I really don't need a lot in physical surrounding because I'm not very focused on it.
Do you often feel about bragging about your modesty?
What?
Do you ever feel like bragging about your modesty?
Okay. Well, you know.
No, that was just a little joke.
Never mind. I was thinking about saying one personal history, but no, we don't have enough time for this. So, rejects any sorts of food delicacies and flashy self-presentation. I reject it. I reject definitely if I should prepare it for myself. When someone gives me some delicacy, I don't reject it, but I don't need it also. And yeah, flashy self-presentation, I don't like it. Yes, I feel like an imposter then. So yes, care for it really boosts its mood and prompts it to action.
Yeah, it's a profile, it's an it.
I don't know. I really don't think it has some effect on me because I really don't care about these things or focus. So I really can't say. So it's loyal to those who often offer it this kind of support. For me, there are a lot of different things which I value more than physical support. So no, this is not truth.
That's the thing with the NF or the NT is more important.
Yeah.
Or we could say this E4 is more important. Yeah.
I think it's nice when someone makes me a tea or makes me a dinner because I'm terrible. I'm not good at preparing those things for myself and for others. But it's not necessary for me. I just can buy a yogurt or something, and I definitely won't stay with you just because if you are preparing me my food. So, and number 5 is proactively compassionate when facing people's discomfort, illness, physical limitations. Well, I'm compassionate by words mainly. I will try to ask you for your condition. I will ask those people and offer them some alternatives or some insights, but I'm not very good at providing care.
Yeah.
So
again, it would be psychological, abstract.
Yeah, I can try to do that, but probably it won't be very good. It won't be so helpful. I feel much more stronger in providing psychological help.
Right, there you go.
And as I+, first, has modest requirements for comfort at home. Yeah, it's truth. I almost don't notice if something is comfortable or not. As long as I feel mentally stimulated or focused for some intellectual or mental activity. So comfort, I really don't concentrate for it. Second one, the most important of them being, it must have good conditions for doing the work it loves. Okay, good conditions. What does it mean?
I asked Victor this, and basically it's just the case of You know, like in Hangouts where I go and get food because I cannot concentrate. I feel hungry. I need to get some food, even though it's in the middle of a Hangout. So in order to think properly, I need to satisfy this hunger in my belly. People complain about me always eating and drinking in Hangouts.
Well, I always drinking on Hangouts because I'm trying to stay awake. But again, I don't think a lot about if I'm hungry or not. I just don't notice these things. So I don't know at this point.
Yeah, that can sometimes happen to me as well. It's like because MBTI, because other schools might say that NPs are not as in touch with their bodies, and so sometimes don't know when they're hungry and things like that, and because they're not as sensitive to it. Whereas sometimes they are very sensitive. So it's a weird position, the launcher position, in that sometimes it's very sensitive.
Yeah, good conditions for me are having a lot of time or a lot of space.
Yeah, an easy, relaxing pace. Yeah.
The usual everyday chores feel like a strain but help it stay in shape. Well, I have to say that the usual everyday chores feel like a strain. That's definitely true. But I feel drained. I don't think they help me stay in shape. I really don't think so. I just would say I get tired and drained. And
compared to if you wanted to do what you wish you could do, which is just sit there and read all day, then you wouldn't burn many calories from turning the page.
But maybe if you think like really hard about so many complicated things, then
and that's interesting because because the brain uses about 1/4 of our calories up in a warm-blooded mammal, and they worked out that if we were cold-blooded, it would take up like 80% of our calories would go in our brain, and so that sort of explains why cold-blooded creatures didn't really develop large brains, because the cost benefit analysis wasn't in its favor to have something that was so expensive in terms of energy consumption. And also because cold-blooded creatures didn't eat as much, they weren't in a position where to use their brain in order to get food. But that's a digression about the energy requirements of the brain. And then, so I need off your NE, because you were saying there about, well, maybe if we're sat there and we think hard enough, we'll use calories. Yeah. I think you're on number 4 now, because I know you have to go soon.
Oh, yeah. Good health is achieved mostly through moderation and a comfortable, unhurried schedule. That's probably true. I'm basically trying to avoid something what can be risky for my health, because I'm not very good at providing good physical care in me. Yeah. I tend to neglect my physical need, I would say.
Yeah.
So
low energy, yeah.
Yeah.
Low energy for this function. And then number 5.
Investing in its health and recreation brings added strength and more optimistic outlook. Optimistic outlook.
They might have that the wrong way around. It might be because they've got more an optimistic outlook, they do these things. Whereas if they're depressed, I can't be bothered, then it's like there's a little bit, it might go both ways there.
Well, I think I get optimistic outlook from different things than caring of my health and recreation.
I can see what they mean, though, is that the idea being that if you're in good health, you've got more energy.
Yeah, I get how they mean, but
right then. So I'm going to.
So actually, I think
it has to go. Oh, go on. If you want to wind up.
Well, I just think that this was really weird because I really can't see myself in either SI minus and SI plus.
Well, the best.
Maybe SI plus would be more fitting to me, but there are a lot of buts. Like, I think that my SI is actually lower than this.
Right. Yeah, I actually should have shown. Did I show you this?
You did.
I showed it to Lee. I think because I get confused about. So I wonder again, because it's a weak function, it's going to be hard to identify with. So it's going to be tricky.
You know, as we discussed today, those Gardner intelligence, those bodily kinesthetic intelligence, it's something what I really don't have, and I'm terrible at this. At this bodily kinesthetic, I really. It's terrible, and P and games and sports. I hate those things.
Remember to tell Leon that.
Yeah.
When he thinks ISFP.
Yes, so doing anything to do with coordination, I'm very bad with coordination.
And only yesterday, Shannon was talking about dancing, and that wanted to know when the hangout was because she wanted to fit her welding course in. So
well, I like the idea of being a ballet dancer, you know, but I'm really terrible at it. I had to quit very soon with my ballet classes because.
Well, this is the thing: is we all the temperaments tend to have, and the types tend to have predisposed abilities, but people of all types can be. So when I was doing my biology degree, there's no way everyone on that course was an NT. If you just think when you did your philosophy degree, you could think about what were the types of the people on it, or in terms of their rough temperament. Were they all NFs? Were they all probably NTs as well? There might have been some. There might have been the odd ISFP there, sat in a leather jacket, being philosophical. The coolest students, I don't know.
Yeah, there are so many weird and
like an INTP with a bow tie.
Like, you know, in a good way, like very alternative, very there were just people who thought differently than majority.
Yeah, and there might have been like the annoying Marxist INTJ there. And part of that is part of their egomania of like, oh, well, if the government's in charge and I'm in charge of the government, I can mastermind everything. Right then, so I will, because Monica's got to go, I will stop recording in a moment. So there we go, folks. I'm going to stop now. And welcome to, it'll be part 3, will be the self-affirmation block. So that's going to be NE and TE in INFP and NE and FE in INTP. Yes, NE, TE, NE and TE in INFP and NE and FE in INTP. I think I got that right.